Hello everyone, Amy here. I just wanted to check in on a few things regarding this week's discussion. This is something I'll do every week in the middle of the week, either usually Thursday or Friday, depending on what's going on that week, how the discussion's going, what the content is, and that kind of thing. So mostly I'll be focusing on the discussion with these updates, but I also might have some other important updates that need to be provided to you that I might emphasize here as well. So make sure you're looking into these videos for feedback on your work, but also important information. All right, so let's just jump into the discussion. I think so far you guys are doing a really awesome job and providing some really insightful feedback, so I appreciate your hard work on that. I will go ahead and comment on the student introductions discussion for extra credit is going very well. Also, I've really enjoyed meeting all of you and getting to know some things about you, and I've also enjoyed seeing your comments to each other as you kind of start to get to know each other in the class as well. So I do appreciate you guys being open and honest and forthcoming and engaging with each other there as well. Okay, so down here in our multiple intelligences activity this week, again, you guys have come up with a lot of really insightful things to say, and I appreciate all the thought and hard work you have put into completing this week's activity, and several of you have already started your comments to one another, so that was good to see as well. Let me talk just briefly here about how I'm going to be participating in these discussions. I know a lot of online classes use discussions differently, and so I'll just provide you with an overview of how I approach them in my classes and how we'll be using them in this class. I give you the discussion prompts as a way to give you some practice with some of the challenging concepts that you're going to have to apply to whatever essay you're working on in that particular unit of the semester. This week was just a little different because I wanted to give you some time to get your feet underneath you, so to speak, and get a sense of what the course is going to be like before I really made you deal with any challenging content. So this is more of just a get to know yourself kind of activity, but it still functions in much the same way. So you'll see me kind of popping in and out of the discussion, but really my goal is for you to complete the activity, and I am trying to get you to find, so to speak, a correct answer. Usually there'll be a question or a series of questions. There might be multiple right answers, but I want you to arrive at a position on something in a way that reflects accurate comprehension of whatever course materials you were reading about and watching about in your text reading and your lecture videos for the week. So I'm not going to be too active in the sense of pushing you guys toward the right answer, because I want to see you grapple with these difficult concepts and I want to see what you can come up with. However, you'll notice toward the beginning of the week, I did pop into these first few posts and provide some of my own feedback. And usually I'll say something like, wow, I can't wait to hear what your classmates have to say. That's kind of my way of saying, hey, classmates, please weigh in on this, because this is something that I think came up in a student's original post that I wanted to highlight and emphasize, and maybe even offer a further question or a further prompt for where the discussion is going to go, and then I want you guys to kind of focus on that particular highlighted part in your comments to each other that you provide afterwards. So that kind of gives us a way to focus the discussion toward accurate comprehension of the course material without me having to provide you guys with the right answer directly. So you'll notice I did this for several of the first few posts that came up, and then it kind of trickled off as we got later into the week. That's because I just typically tend to have more time at the beginning of the week because of how the grading follows the assignments throughout the week. I usually have more to do from about Thursday to Sunday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are slower, and so I'm often able to spend more time jumping into the discussion. The other thing is the earlier you post, they're likely to be more spread out, the posts are. So for example, you'll notice here the very first post came pretty early on Tuesday, which is the very first day that you guys had access to the course, and then there were a couple of more that day, and I was able to get to every single one of those because there were only a total of 3 posts that day. And so I can easily respond to 3 posts in one day. But then when we get on to Wednesday, this person's was pretty early. I was able to get in there and provide some feedback, although I see that several classmates were able to do so before I even was able to get in there. But then after that, they just start coming from about 9:45. I didn't check in the middle of the day because it was a busier day for me, but you can see toward the afternoon and evening, there are several coming in, and I can't get to all of those. And so that's when I posted that reminder, because I saw that only 7 of you had posted when I was able to get in later in the evening, and I sent the email as well. So, if I see something that I want to redirect or something that I think is particularly important to emphasize, I will jump on it regardless of how busy I am. But there are times when I just can't respond to every single discussion post, and so you'll see I'm more likely to get you direct individual feedback if you post earlier in the week, just because of how the timing of everything works out. There will be times when I will also start a thread and kind of pin it to the top here. If I see any major issues that need to be corrected or anything really good that I see happening that I want to emphasize, I'll put that there, and so you might see some additional feedback from me beyond the original prompt, just as a pin that is, a thread that is pinned to the top here. So make sure you're checking to see if I've posted anything additional when you come into the forum. I also noticed in your comments, several of you are starting to respond to the comments you received already. So I think Jason was one. So here's Jason's original thread. Kara has commented, and then Jason got right back to her. That is a really good way to get the discussion going and keep it moving like a conversation. Because, when we are having real conversations with people, we're not waiting 2 days in between saying something and getting their response. It's really a back and forth, back and forth. And so the more frequently you're able to check in and kind of reply and keep the conversation going, I think the more engaged everybody will be, and the more you'll probably get out of the discussion activity overall. However, that's not to confuse the comments that you're providing that way with the overall end of week reflections that you'll have to go back in and provide on your original threads. So if I was Garrett, for example, at the end of the week, I'm going to come into my original thread, read the comments I received, and then post an overall comprehensive reply that kind of sums everything up in my final reflection. So don't forget to do that for Sunday night. And while I'm at it, just a reminder, your comments to each other, 2 of your classmates, are due at midnight tonight, Friday. And so maybe this is a good time to point out that you do have a discussion rubric in your course overview module under content. Don't forget to be looking at that, because that tells you exactly how I'll be grading your discussions and where your point values are going to come from. I'm not going to be filling this out individually for every single one of you every single week, but if you look, say you get a 19, you can read this description, and you should have at least some idea based on that what you were doing well and what you needed to work on in your discussion. And then if you have further comments, you can always ask me for more feedback there. So remember that you do need to post your original thread by the deadline of Wednesday night. You need to have 2 solid comments made to your peers and a final reflection. And how strongly you are executing each of those components will determine where you fall in the rubric. And then the peer review discussions will be those 3 different kind of discussions that we do throughout the semester. I will remind you of those when we get to that point. So right now, next couple of weeks, we'll just be doing general discussions. And then the other way that I will be providing feedback to you all in discussions is through what I like to consider kind of like a little 5 minutes of fame segment, where I pull out some of the more insightful things that I saw people saying in the discussion and kind of highlight those for everyone to see. So I wanted to pull out some of the thoughts that I saw in your original threads first, where people were coming up with really good ideas of ways to use their strengths to apply to their learning strategies and be successful in their courses this summer. So this person says, I was not surprised that social was the highest scoring intelligence for me. I've thrived in the service industry, have always been people oriented. It has helped me learn a lot, and going into my new online schooling adventure, I believe it will help me even more. I'm in 3 online classes this summer, and I plan to use this skill to strengthen my learning by trying to set up study groups, frequently emailing professors and classmates, and taking an active role in discussions. Since this is my highest scoring intelligence, the discussions might help me even more than the textbooks. So, several really insightful things coming up here. So I just thought it was interesting, first of all, that this person says that their strength in the social intelligence area could help them in an online class, because I always think people have this bias or prejudice that online classes don't have as strong of social relationships, and I think that can totally be overcome if discussions are used effectively, if email and news updates are used effectively, so that we're all kind of in constant communication with each other. So I was glad to see that this student brought that up, and then again, some really good practical suggestions for things that this person can do to improve their learning. And then here, just I thought a really cool thing to hear a student say, yes, discussions can help you more than textbooks. Textbooks provide the information, but discussions help you apply the information, which helps you learn it so much better. So I really appreciated that thought. This person says, my top 3 were fairly accurate. My first was body movement, followed by self and nature. I'm a very active person. I love spending my time outdoors, so the body movement and nature aspects were on point. I also enjoy the peace and quiet that comes with being alone and having the opportunity to think through things by myself. However, I don't know that I'll be trying reading out of cookbooks to improve this as it so suggests. So I just wanted to bring this up because it's true that you don't have to agree with everything that these kinds of tests say. You know, take it with a grain of salt, and I think most of you had some pretty strong connections, but you don't, again, have to agree with everything. And I really appreciated this person's honesty and their willingness to just kind of put that out there and point out that, you know, not everything is going to be perfect about these kinds of inventories. It's kind of like you want to follow the law of averages and say, well, for the most part, this can give me some relatively useful suggestions. This person says, I may retake this to see if I'm answering the same things. I feel that my answers are a few years ago would certainly be different, but I guess change is the only constant. So true. So I thought this was cool because it is important to think about the fact that you're not always going to be the same person your entire life. So you might excel in certain areas over the course of your lifetime, and those areas might shift. So please do take that into consideration as you're trying to like think about yourself honestly and learn from your strengths to be more successful toward reaching your goals. And then this last one says, from this learning inventory, I believe that I can strengthen my learning and intelligence by trying new things that I may not be all that intelligent or familiar with. For instance, I scored low in language and reading. I absolutely hate reading things that aren't of my interest. I enjoy reading about sports and stats or about crazy things happening in our world all around us. But I do enjoy not enjoy reading books, fictional or non-fictional. My dad has always told me reading is actually very good for you because it strengthens your brain and your language, so maybe taking a step to partake in reading more books will help me improve my intelligence in those categories. By doing that, that will also help me step out of my comfort zone and step into the unknown. Who knows, I may really start enjoying it. So I wanted to bring this up because several of you mentioned areas that you did not score as highly in, so areas that were more of weaknesses for you. And I do think it's important to be aware of all of our strengths and weaknesses, but I want to warn against putting too much thought into how can I improve on these things that I didn't score as highly in, because really the idea here is for you to score higher in some things and not as highly in other things, because we all have different strengths, and you're going to excel more in one type of intelligence than you would in another. So really you can't have a high score in every single kind of intelligence. That's not even really possible for a human being. So I don't want you guys to get too wrapped up in trying to bring up your scores in areas that you don't necessarily score as highly in. However, I do think this person makes some really good points about how you can maybe find things within areas of weaknesses areas of weakness that tap into your strengths. Like this person is saying that he hates reading, but he does like reading about sports because he's athletic and maybe more into nature or bodily kinesthetic movement and that kind of thing. So can you use one intelligence to kind of help you overcome your weaknesses in another area. So that was kind of a cool thing to bring up here. And then also I just want to point out that books about sports and stats are nonfictional. So, you know, you can really find nonfiction books out there about anything. So if you're interested in anything and just trying to read more, because as this person said, it is really good to help your brain to read, try to find something that you really are interested in, because that will help you find an access point, I think. Okay, so keep up the good work. I will provide more feedback at the end of the week. Mostly on your comments and reflections, however, so that's most of my feedback on your original posts. Thanks very much. Have a great week.